All right, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. We still have some people joining us, but I think now is a good time to get started. My name is Connor Statham, and I serve as the account manager for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program. The Zero Energy Ready Home program has successfully recognized thousands of high-performance homes throughout the United States over the last 8 years based on version 1 of the Zero Energy Ready Home requirements. Today, we're excited to discuss the draft version 2 Zero Energy Ready Home program requirements. So our team has worked very hard over the past year to develop this program update, and we really look forward to sharing our plans for the future. Just a quick reminder, the draft version 2 program requirements are now open for stakeholder feedback through December 2nd. We'll share more information today about submitting comments. Before we officially start, I would like to address a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded and posted online for those who are unable to make it today. There's also a chat box for Q&A. If you have any immediate questions, you can access that at the bottom of the Zoom panel. However, DOE does request that the partners submit your feedback in writing using the public comment form located on the program website. So it is recorded for the record of the stakeholder feedback. So now I think we can go to the next slide. All right. At this time, I'd like to introduce the other members of the Zero Energy Ready Homes team. With us today, we have Eric Whirling, the Building America and DOE Zero Energy Ready Home Program Director, Jamie Van Murek, the US DOE Fellow, and Jamie Lyons, the Technical Director for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes Program. And we can go next. In today's session, we're going to cover 4 topics: why version 2, the DOE and EPA coordination, and we will review the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes version 2 draft updates. And we'll also look at how to submit feedback. Before turning things over to Eric and getting us started with why version 2, we do have a couple of quick polls to get us started today. So to respond to the poll, you can use your smartphone's camera and point it at the QR code that's up on the screen, and it should redirect you to a separate page. And on that page, you can then quickly respond to the polling question, or you can also go to slido.com. I will post that in the chat quickly, and you can respond after you put in the PIN number that is over there. So I'll post that in the chat. So at this point, you can use your phone and point it at that QR code there. It looks like some people are already answering. That's great. All right, give another few moments here and we'll get moving along. Looks like we have quite a variety in here. A lot of energy raters, I'd be interested to know what you guys are. Some designers, some builders, no utility so. All right, I think we can go on to the next poll. Next poll is up on the screen. To what extent have you been involved with DOE? And you should see the next poll be live now. Looks like we have quite a few answers coming in already. That's good. Involved with ZRH in a few projects. No experience, welcome. On many projects, that's good. I see a few of our partners on here. And all right, looks like we have a good variety once again. So once again, welcome everyone. And at this point in time, I'd now like to turn things over to Eric Whirling of DOE.
Thanks, Connor. That's great. I'm just gonna take a couple of minutes to highlight some of the reasons why we're going to version 2 real quick. And I just have a single slide to do that. And then I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jamie Van Murek. And she'll have some brief comments as well about the process that we use to get here. And then Jamie Lyons is going to get into the details, which is what we want to spend most of the time on today. So there's a whole lot of things going on right now that are pointing to a significant need for us to update Zero Energy Ready homes. The first thing I want to highlight is, why zero energy ready homes in the first place, and that for those, especially for those of you who don't have experience with the program directly, zero energy ready homes is a program. It's been around for 8 years. It is modeled after the Energy Star Homes program, which has been around for 25 years, I believe, 26. And the theory of change with this program is that if we highlight voluntary specifications for new construction builders that get to high performance home levels voluntarily without starting with doing it without any incentives other than it's a better home and you get recognized for it, and you get guidance that helps mitigate some of the risk of trying new technologies, et cetera, and you get to a high performance level that delivers better value to your customers. That's what we're about with zero energy ready homes, and we know it works because we started this with Energy Star 25 plus years ago, and we've seen significant adoption and improvement in the marketplace of high performance energy efficiency homes. And of course, we've learned along the way that it's more than just energy. It's also about health and resilience and durability of the building, et cetera, reducing risks related to, moisture problems, indoor air quality problems, et cetera. So all of these are reasons for us to do zero energy ready homes. And why does DOE care about it? Of course, because the residential building sector uses roughly a fifth of the total energy of our entire economy in the US, and something like 40% of the electricity used in our economy. So homes are a really big deal with regards to energy efficiency. And for the last year, we've been close to a year, we've been moving towards this appreciation of how important the global climate change issues are, for not just for this particular administration, but for the global the global climate is affecting all of us, and we're seeing that in news every day. So what we have today is an opportunity really to take what we've done with Energy Star and zero energy ready homes and move it towards a truly zero emissions goal in the coming years and decades. And that, if you read the news, that with the conclusion of the COP26 meeting over in Europe recently, there's increasing recognition across most of the nations on our planet that we need to have in place commitments and strategies for getting to zero emissions economies, and the U.S. is no exception to that. What's our role in the residential new construction part? We are a piece of that pie, and we're not an insignificant piece of that pie. What we do with new homes is going to make a difference towards that goal. We probably will not be able to achieve those lofty global climate change mitigation goals if we can't prove that we can do it in the new construction market in the coming decade. So we're a super important part of this big global climate change challenge. Obviously, we can't possibly bear the full responsibility of climate change, but we have a very important part to play in that goal. So that's the first one, and that's sort of the existential. Why are we doing this? Because homes matter, and towards global climate change, but they also matter towards the your customers as builders, et cetera. Better quality homes are being recognized as being important for everyone at all economic levels in our economy, et cetera. So how do we play a role at moving the market towards basically standard practice for high performance homes that meet or exceed the zero energy ready level homes. And, it also affects codes. The 2021 IECC, which has only been adopted in a couple states to date, but it is the latest national model energy code. And that code has advanced with regards to installation requirements and other efficiency targets. Energy Star is changing. They just went out a few weeks ago with proposed version 3.2, which benchmarks the Energy Star requirements to ICC 2021. So all these things are changing, and we can't afford to stay stuck in the version 1 that we developed 8 years ago. Another thing that's moving in our favor of a version 2 for zero energy ready homes, the HERS scores. For those of you who follow ResNet, you've probably seen announcements over the years that the average HERS scores are trending downwards, and that's been a long-term trend. I think the latest average HERS score, and this is no small number of homes in the neighborhood of over 200,000 per year, new homes are being rated, and the scores are coming down. They're in the neighborhood of 60 for the average new home that's being scored through the HERS process. So it's an indication that there is this hard trend towards greater efficiency in new construction. So that sort of poises us for evaluation of how efficient are the zero energy ready homes requirements compared to where the market is going. And we need to make sure that we're always a target that's feasible in the marketplace, profitable for the builders, but also a stretch beyond codes. So all of those factors are leading to us wanting to take on the next generation of zero energy ready homes targets. Innovations in technology are making it easier for builders to get to the zero energy ready homes target. And I think I've already sort of mentioned this, that in my view, zero energy ready homes are paving the way to this clean energy economy for our part, for the part of residential buildings, which is substantial. And then finally, there are some policies that are being considered that may well provide an opportunity for zero energy ready homes to gain much more market adoption going forward. In particular, the one that I have my eye on the most is the 45L tax credit, which is if passed in the Build Back Better plan, or otherwise called the reconciliation bill, if that gets passed in the 45L, the proposed 45L tax credit changes happen, there's going to be a $5,000 federal tax incentive for zero energy ready homes that hasn't existed before. And we think that's a potential game changer. And we're planning appropriately for that possibility if it happens. And we're going to need to make sure that the specification for zero energy ready homes is in lockstep with this progress towards clean energy homes, et cetera. So that's fairly long list of reasons why it's time for us to go to version 2. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jamie, and she's going to talk about the process that we went through in order to get to these proposed specifications.
Thanks, Eric. So you might be wondering how DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home relates to the other companion programs like Energy Star and Indoor Air Plus, or even the Minimum Energy Code, which is a great question. Version 2 goes beyond the 2021 IECC and continues to build on the federal above code program, which allows for opportunities for multiple forms of recognition. Energy Star is a great starting point for builders on their journey to building above code, high performance, energy efficient homes. These homes are 10% more efficient than the adopted state code. DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home version 2 program is a step-up program for builders that brings higher levels of energy efficiency and additional specific provisions for improved building envelope performance, including being 20% more energy efficient than the 2021 IECC, and that's nationwide, requiring Energy Star version 3.2 and Indoor Air Plus certifications as prerequisites, and requiring more efficient duct and hot water system designs. So a complete package of indoor air quality protections and PV readiness. EPA also has a new certification, which has been proposed and available for public comment, which is a program for builders that want to take the next step towards decarbonization and electrification, along with achieving higher levels of energy efficiency that include being 10% more energy efficient than the 2021 IECC, that's nationwide, requiring Energy Star version 3.2 certification as a prerequisite, and requiring the installation of connected heat pumps, connected heat pump water heaters, induction cooking, and electric vehicle charging capabilities. Builders are able to pursue both Zero Energy Ready certification or EPA's new certification, or both if you want, again, multiple forms of recognition. So right now, the proposed programs are not a prerequisite for each other, and DOE and EPA are committed to continuing to work together to ensure that the federal certification programs continue to evolve towards zero emission homes into the future. So for DOE specifically, we're not requiring electrification in the proposed version 2 draft. However, we are very interested in receiving your feedback on 2 questions as they relate to the new proposed Energy Star certification label. So these questions are in the public comment form. The first is, should DOE consider requiring the new Energy Star next generation certification for DOE Zero Energy Ready Home version 2? And the second question is, should DOE consider offering 2 types of Zero Energy Ready Home certification under version 2, a basic version and a next gen version that includes the Energy Star next generation certification requirements? So again, we really want to hear your feedback, and you can find those questions in the public comment form. So I'm going to let Jamie Lyons take us through the specific details of version 2.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Connor, for kicking us off, and thank you everybody for joining us for part of your day. So as mentioned, over the next few dozen slides, we'll unpack what are the proposed updates that DOE is considering for Zero Ready version 2. And the first thing I'd like to sort of bring into focus is, what buildings are we talking about in this discussion? And that is going to be the sort of the left 2/3 of the screen here, the single family buildings, whether they're attached or detached. This is the eligibility, the scope of the proposed Zero Energy Ready version 2. And a couple things to point out. Compliance will be based on a performance pathway, just like you have in Energy Star. And the prerequisites will continue to point to Energy Star single family new homes, and we'll be pointing to version 3.2, which you've just heard a little bit about, as well as the Indoor Air Plus certification. And we'll unpack what that means on a couple slides that we have in the pipeline here. As far as multifamily, really, really important. A lot of our stakeholders are in that part of the industry, and we are making program plans and updates in that regard as well. That takes the form of a Zero Energy Ready multifamily specific program, just like the Energy Star multifamily new construction program on the Energy Star side. And I'm going to sort of put that topic on deck for an upcoming discussion, and I'll share a little bit about the time frame for that. But today's discussion is going to be Zero Ready version 2. And again, that's focused on the single family realm, the attached and detached homes there, just like Energy Star single family homes. So that's kind of the framework we're working within. Another high level point to just to be aware of is the requirement structure is very, very much like we have today in version 1 of Zero Ready, where we have our mandatory provisions. These are the things that are really, really important to get in each labeled zero energy ready home. And then we have what's called the target home. That sets the efficiency level, the bar for how efficient we want these homes to be in the form of the energy rating index. So that's the other sort of key section of the program requirements you'll see when you take a look. And we'll unpack a little bit more about the target home, what that looks like and how it works in the slides that follow. So the next handful of slides, we're going to take a look at the mandatory requirements, those must-haves. And the way we'll present these is to show where we are in version 1 and where we're proposing to go in the upgrades in version 2. And the good starting point for that is the building envelope. This is a really key part of the Zero Ready program overall. We have this one really outstanding opportunity to design in efficiency and performance for the life cycle of the building during initial construction. So the Zero Ready program has always placed a strong emphasis on the building envelope. You get the efficiency benefits, you get performance and comfort benefits. Increasingly, that really robust building envelope can open the door to grid interactive building benefits and opportunities down the road. So in version 1, the envelope is pegged to the installation levels as found in the 2015 IECC, International Energy Conservation Code. In version 2, it's proposed to upgrade those to the latest version of the IECC, the 2021 version. Additionally, Zero Ready V2 proposes a measure to add thermal breaks for walls in mixed and cold climate zones. And we'll take a look at a few more of the details on both those items here. This is a snapshot of the installation requirements for all these opaque assemblies like ceilings and above grade walls, etc., as they're found in the 2021 IECC. The yellow cells that are highlighted here indicate a bump up, an increase or an upgrade from what's found in the 2015 IECC, which again is the current baseline for Zero Ready V1. You can see here the ceiling insulation levels where we have a 49 now that was previously R38, and where the prior code had an R49. You can see several of those in climate zones 4 and colder move up to R60. Wood frame walls in climate zones 4 and 5, they bump up in terms of the insulation levels. And then the slab edge insulation, especially in zone 3, it goes from no requirement to an R10 for at least 2 feet. So those are all some of the increases that are sort of built into the 2021 IECC. As far as what's the impact, what does that look like? We've done some modeling to explore that question. And as you might imagine, it depends. It depends to some extent on the climate zone. You can see in the modeling, we had 4 different prototype models exploring a few different building geometries. But the increase in the slab edge from no slab edge insulation to having that R10 in zone 3, you see a big increase in the building UA. So generally, that's a good thing. That means you're getting much better thermal performance from the envelope. You also see some increases in zones 4 and 5. But again, for a given house, this will vary based on the climate zone as well as the geometry and the foundation type. And I also want to point out that those R values we just looked at, they're the prescriptive R values found in the 21 code. And where nearly all of our projects end up going is they'll use a UA trade-off, which is a function built into the rating software. So projects are able to add a little more insulation in some areas, a little bit less in others, as long as the overall UA of that building envelope meets or exceeds what the 21 code prescriptive values would call for. In this very simple example, climate zone 3, 2-story slab on grade foundation, instead of the R49 is called for the attic insulation prescriptively in the code. Our pretend model down here uses something less than R38, but it also uses a better window with a lower U factor compared to what's found in the code. And as a result, the UA compliance pathway works out for this building, so it meets the 2021 UA requirement for the code. We also do note that we've explored a little bit the possibility of trading off the R10. And while it's possible, it could be difficult with a lot of different building geometries. So just a word on that. The other component that we're proposing for Zero Ready V2 on the envelope is to get thermal breaks in the above grade walls in these mixed and cold climate zones, zones 4 and colder. And what that looks like is just some kind of break so we don't have a continuous thermal bridge in the wall studs from the exterior face of the wall to the interior face. I'd say many, if not most, of our builder partners in these climate zones are currently using some strategy to get that thermal break. And some of the strategies called out in our draft program requirements, which are acceptable, are listed here. Staggered stud walls, use of exterior rigid insulation, ICFs, SIP panels, double stud walls. We see a variety of all these typically in the program today. Moving on to the HVAC provisions that are mandatory and Zero Ready. There's not a lot going on here, but I do want to highlight that Zero Ready version 1 has always required that ducts and HVAC equipment be located in an optimized location. So they're not just stuck up in a sweltering hot attic or some other really sort of some area with very heavy thermal penalties for the HVAC equipment and the ductwork. In version 2, we're going to keep right on that course. It's a very important component in high performance buildings. We've seen a lot of our partners successfully integrate designs that achieve this. The only item I'm noting here on this slide is that we're just clarifying that this provision applies to ducts serving heating and cooling systems. If we have ductwork that's only serving a whole house ventilation system, it's not subject to this provision. So we just want to point that out because that question does come up on a regular basis. The next item in the mandatory bucket for Zero Ready is the windows. In version 1 of the windows, it's the minimum requirements for the windows are to meet the Energy Star window specifications, and it's a hybrid really of the version 5.0 and the version 6.0 Energy Star window specs. And we're proposing in version 2 to update that, bring all the window specs at least up to the Energy Star 6.0 window criteria, except for very cold climates where the specs are being set at a more rigorous target at a U value of 0.25. And the rationale for doing this is pretty clear, that we want to continue to update the minimum window requirements. But we also point out and anticipate that we currently have partners using windows beyond these minimums, and that's great. They're using it typically to achieve higher levels of performance, oftentimes using even higher performing windows as part of a UA's trade-off strategy. So maybe they're doing a little less insulation in some other part of the envelope and using the impact of those high performance windows as part of their trade-off strategy to optimize their approach to the whole envelope. And we expect to continue to see that. So as far as the proposed window values, the minimum window values for version 2, they're listed out here, and you can see how they're a function of the climate zone. So we list the U value along with the solar heat gain coefficient. And then I also just want to point out an advisory. Many of you might be aware that the Energy Star window program is in the midst of updating their window specifications to version 7.0. And DOE and our program are taking a very close eye and monitoring the progress of finalizing these updated window specs, and plan to adopt them in a future program update, depending on the timing of when they're finalized. And it's also likely that the Zero Ready program would work to expedite the inclusion of the latest window specs from Energy Star in the very cold climates where they really have a lot of impact given their thermal performance. So just an advisory of something to watch for that's still on the horizon. Moving to the lighting provision that's mandatory in Zero Ready. In version 1, there was a day 80% high efficiency lighting looked pretty good. That day has come and gone. So we're proposing in version 2 to move it up to a minimum of 90%, or excuse me, 95% of the lighting to be high efficiency. And this is simply recognizing the widespread availability of very high performance and cost-effective LED lighting. And the main question we've gotten thus far is 95 is good, but why not 100%? Doesn't that make sense? And there's an argument to be made for that, but our logic is that we're setting the minimum bar at 95%. That's mandatory. And we're leaving just a little bit of flexibility if a partner has some special fixture that may not meet the criteria. But we also do point out that the target home, which sets the bar, it sets the ERI level for how efficient the design home needs to be. That target home assumes 100% high efficiency lighting. So if a given project were to use just a little bit less than 100%, they still need to make up for that little loss in energy efficiency somewhere else in the building's design. So we're trying to provide that flexibility, but not really giving up anything in terms of the whole building energy efficiency. Next is the appliance updates in the program. And we've often looked at the appliances as, it's not maybe the first thing we think about with high performance homes, but it's kind of a no-brainer if we're really trying to reduce the energy budget and drive these homes towards lower and lower energy use and getting them closer and closer to zero energy ready. So the version 1 specs all along have required, if the builder's installing the refrigerator, the dishwasher, the clothes washer, it's Energy Star qualified. Moving ahead, we're simply adding clothes dryers to that list where the builder's installing that appliance. And that's simply a recognition that clothes dryers were added several years ago to the Energy Star family of products. So we'd like to recognize that and include them in these requirements where they're installed by the builder. The next stop on the mandatory items is the indoor air quality provisions of DOE Zero Energy Ready Home. These are incredibly important for our builders. Even pre-COVID, indoor air quality was a big marketing and sales point for our builder partners with their clients. And that's obviously just accelerated and become even more important over the last couple of years. Under the Zero Ready V1 program, we've simply pointed to this off-the-shelf package of comprehensive indoor air quality provisions as they're found in the Indoor Air Plus program, abbreviated IAP. And we point to IAP V1. Certification under IAP is required currently for Zero Ready version 1. Shifting ahead to version 2 of Zero Ready, we're going to continue to keep that requirement for Indoor Air Plus version 1 certification through at least the end of 2022. And we're providing this sort of window of predictability because Indoor Air Plus is also considering program updates right now. And we want to give our partners predictability as far as when Zero Ready might roll in an updated IAP program. So for the time being, through the end of next year, Zero Ready version 2 is proposing just to continue to reference IAP version 1. And we'll provide any updates on when the Indoor Air Plus provisions would be updated beyond that. On top of that, there's 2 other items being proposed for Zero Ready version 2. This middle one here is the use of H or ERVs in very cold climates. And then the last one down here is the use of MERV 13 or higher filters installed on ducted heating and cooling systems. And as far as the rationale for the MERV 13 filter, this is simply accelerating an important provision that's very likely to appear in updated IAP specs once they come out. And this is the recommended level of filtration by groups like ASHRAE. So it seems to make sense to accelerate this into the program in version 2. And we see a lot of our builder partners already using that level of filter. As far as the H and ERVs requirement, Zero Ready V2 proposes to add this as a requirement for the very cold climate zones. This type of provision is actually finding its way into energy codes, and the heat exchange capabilities that you get with an HRV or an ERV really can pay dividends in terms of reducing the thermal impact of ventilation and any potential comfort impacts. And DOE has also done a lot of research in this area and observed a host of technology options coming into the marketplace as well. The last item on the list of Zero Ready mandatory items, the must-haves, is the PV Ready provisions. So as many of you are aware, Zero Ready version 1 requires projects to apply the PV Ready checklist. Moving forward in version 2, there's a couple significant tweaks we're proposing, which I'll show on the next couple slides. In a nutshell, what they're doing is just sort of keeping up with trends in the marketplace that we've seen regarding the cost of residential solar and the technology of residential or panels that find their way on the residential projects. And I'd like to just jump ahead to this first slide. It's a great study that was released by NREL this year. And it sort of puts numbers behind a trend that I think many of us have been observing, that residential PV systems have been really enjoying this downward trend. And based on this study, these costs are down 64% going back to 2010. And so Zero Ready as a program, our PV Ready checklist has a sense of these fairly modest, no cost, low cost provisions that set up a house to more easily accommodate PV in the future. For those of you who are familiar with the checklist, you've seen this map and the provisions that say these PV ready measures are required in the high solar areas, and they're encouraged in these other areas, which comprise a lot of the footprint of the United States. And the way to determine where a project falls is we have a lookup tool, and for a given zip code, you look up the project location and you'll see a result that indicates what are the solar resources for a given project location based on kilowatt hours per meter squared per day. And it's amazing how many project locations land at 4.9 or 4.85, and they're just shy of the 5.0 threshold at which the PV ready features become required. And the sense of our project team is that, given the widespread reduction in PV system costs, it probably makes sense moving forward just to eliminate this sort of line in the sand that's been drawn and have the PV ready features implemented throughout the US. And there still are some common sense exceptions in the requirements that could still exempt out a given project location. For instance, if it has a whole lot of shading or if the building's simply not oriented the right way. Those things are still in there, but the exception simply based on geography is proposed to just have the PV ready checklist apply universally throughout the US. And the second item to touch on with the PV ready updates for version 2 is a recognition that more and more PV panels include microinverters. So we have these third and fourth items here in the list that are designed to set up the home to more easily accommodate an inverter in the vicinity of the electric panel. However, if it's really unlikely that such an inverter would be used down the road, it doesn't make sense to include these provisions to set up that location. So we're proposing to sunset those two components of the PV ready checklist, just making that recognition about the trend in residential PV systems. So that's it for the mandatory items. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the efficiency target. And I've mentioned this a few times. This is essentially how low does the ERI target for a house have to be to meet the efficiency expectations or thresholds for the Zero Ready program under version 2. Before jumping right into that question, I wanted to spend a minute on this concept of the target home. For those of you familiar with the Energy Star program and its format, they have a reference design or reference home, which does the exact same thing, albeit at a different level. So the target home is a replica of the design home. It only lives in the rating software. And it's not something that the rater actually has to program in. It's generated automatically by the software, and that's how it's intended to be set up. The job of the target home is based on the programming of the design home. The software creates this target home and it dials it into certain specifications that are laid out in our program. And based on those specifications and the geometry and the design of the target home, it establishes an energy rating index that the design home has to come in at that level or beat it. And a real quick example, let's assume that our target home is getting generated in the background of the software. And for air infiltration, the Zero Ready V2 specs tell it you're going to have an ACH 50 of 2.0, and your heat pump efficiency, your HSPF, is going to be 9.0. And the software then equates this to the target home ERI for zero energy ready home is going to be 48. Over here on the right side is the design home. And this is the home that most raters and others are familiar with. This home is being modeled in the rating software. The design home under zero ready still needs to meet all those mandatory provisions that we just walked through. So they're still part and parcel of each zero energy ready labeled home. But beyond those mandatory measures, the design home does have the flexibility to do different trade-offs. As long as at the end of the modeling, it gets an ERI at or below what was generated for that target home. And so returning to that really simple example, let's suppose our design home is a little more leaky. It has an infiltration rate of 2.5 ACH50, but lo and behold, its heat pump heating efficiency is higher. It's a 9.5. And as a result, the ERI for our design home ends up at a 47. And lo and behold, that's even lower than the ERI of 48 of the target home. So in this case, the design home checks the box. It meets the efficiency target for zero energy ready home. So that's a quick walkthrough of what the target home is and what its job is. Now, with that as backdrop, Zero Ready version 1 has a target home. It has the specifications all laid out in our program documents. And where that has landed most projects is they need to achieve an ERI score somewhere in the 50s. And lo and behold, many projects have achieved that pretty readily. It's pretty rare we've had projects struggling to reach the ERI required by the program. And then in version 2, we're proposing to update those target home specs, make them more rigorous, achieve that 20% level of efficiency and savings beyond the 2021 IECC. And as a result of that, based on our modeling and understanding where the updated target home lands, it's going to result in ERI targets in the 40s, low 40s to upper 40s. So as you might imagine that, we're lowering the bar on the ERI. And given all the backdrop that Eric shared with us, that makes a lot of sense. And we've also seen, even our program participants to date, the average ERI of current projects in the Zero Ready version 1 program is actually a 50. So it's just a step or two away from the ERI targets that we'll be needing under version 2. So we're very optimistic that our builder partners are going to be able to continue to really nail and check the box on the ERI required by the program. Just a quick snapshot of some of the modeling that we've done to benchmark where the ERI scores are landing. And again, the ERI for any given project is generated by the software, so it'll vary by project. But you could see upper 40s down to mid to low 40s. One other comment or update that I'd like to share is the size adjustment factor. For those of you familiar with the program as well as Energy Star Homes, you'll recall that the size adjustment factor was a requirement that was built in, and it would lower the ERI target for homes that were larger than a benchmark home size. And this type of requirement was adopted and mirrored what was found in Energy Star Homes version 3.0 and 3.1 for a while. Under Zero Ready version 2, it's proposed to sunset the size adjustment factor in the same way that Energy Star single family new homes is doing with version 3.2. So that would no longer be any kind of adjustment to the target ERI. The size adjustment factor wouldn't be part of it. And the rationale for doing so is that homes under version 2 will be very efficient regardless of the size adjustment factor. And we'd like to maintain sort of the continuity of program requirements with Energy Star to make life simpler and a little more straightforward for our partners. So with that quick tour through the proposed version 2 updates, just a quick poll, or maybe consider it a little pop quiz. One of these questions is not quite on point. It's not true. And we'll launch the poll here in a moment so you can see it. Zero Ready version 2 draft aligns with the 21 code installation values. Zero Ready version 2 draft aligns with the Oh, now they're bouncing around on me. Requires the use of on-site renewables. Zero Ready V2 draft has a lower ERI target compared to version 1. Or Zero Ready V2 draft only applies to single family homes. And I'm seeing the results come in, and you guys are right on top of this one. Zero Ready version 2 draft is not proposing to require the use of on-site renewables. So that these other 3 statements are accurate, and that one is not the case. So good job on that. Next steps and timeframes. Some of you might have these questions in the back of your mind. Right now, we're in the midst of this top bullet. We're sharing Zero Ready V2 for this 30-day stakeholder comment period. We're about halfway through that. In a moment, I'll show you where you can go to submit your feedback. Early in 2022, we'd like to get Zero Ready version 2 finalized and also work with our partners in the rating software to get it integrated there. The exact timing of this is going to depend on the nature and the extent of the feedback that DOE receives. And then DOE anticipates providing a transition period from version 1 over to version 2 of at least 9 months. And again, we'll keep our program partners up to date on any timeframes as they're determined. And then lastly, as I mentioned right at the outset, DOE is also working on the multifamily draft spec, and we'll have that available for stakeholder comment early in 2022. So be on the lookout for that. And then just as far as the mechanics of taking a look at version 2 and providing your feedback, as you might have guessed, all the materials reside on the Zero Ready website that's listed here. And I think we're also dropping it into the chat. And then as far as what you can expect to see there, if you want the introduction read or maybe just a quick read, there's a 2-page summary of all the changes, somewhat similar to what we've walked through here. Then you have the national program requirements themselves of draft of version 2. There's also a separate document, which is the PV Ready checklist update for version 2. And then the stakeholder feedback form. That's a Word document, and it's broken down section by section to sort of prompt our partners to provide feedback section by section. And it has those 2 questions that Jamie mentioned a few minutes ago as well about, what are the stakeholder views on how Zero Ready version 2 and into the future may align, may integrate with the new certification label under development by EPA. Even if you submit a question today and we have time to touch on it, we appreciate that. We'd also encourage you to submit that comment through the stakeholder feedback form, just so it's part of the entire bundle of comments that's received by DOE. And the deadline for getting that feedback in is December 2nd. So a couple more weeks. And they're emailed to this site or this address that you see here.